Hey everybody, welcome back. I hope that you enjoyed our month of focus on mindfulness. Before we move on to another practice, I'd like to give you my top 10 tips for practicing mindfulness. My first tip is to start small. Even 1 minute of mindfulness every day will begin to build the habit of checking in with your breath, with your physical sensations, with your emotions, and your thoughts. My next tip is to be consistent with your practice. Any practice that is practiced consistently, in all earnestness and over a long period of time, will become habitual. And so it's important that you be consistent in practicing your mindfulness. It is so easy to fall back asleep and to forget to be present in the current moment. My third tip is that it's important to remember that when we sit in a mindfulness meditation, we're not attempting to empty our minds and to be free of thought. We are simply wanting to be aware of the thoughts that are arising. Similarly, we don't try to ignore our thoughts or our emotions. They originate from that part of ourselves that we might call ego, although it's used in a different sense that psychologists would use the word. Our ego is the part of ourselves where our monkey mind originates. And monkey mind is a phrase that is used by meditators to describe the never-ending flow of thoughts that seem to go through our mind constantly. And so we don't try to ignore the thoughts, because just as much as if we were trying to get rid of them, that monkey mind is going to feel like it's under threat, and it's going to generate more and more thoughts to try to perpetuate itself. And so we simply accept the thoughts that come up, and we acknowledge them and let them go without becoming attached. And the same thing with our emotions. And my fifth tip goes along with that, and that is that we don't neglect our thoughts and our emotions. We don't simply see them arise, accept them, watch them pass by, and forget about them entirely. We can always return to them later and assess where that thought came from and what it might be about. Or we can look at our emotions and try to understand how they arose and what they're all about as well. So that when we are mindful, whether we're in meditation or we're in our everyday life, we can create a space between the thought or the emotion arising and our response to it, so that we become much less reactive and much more peaceful in our determination of how we want to handle our lives. Sixth on my list is that we want to be curious, not judgmental, about whatever arises. If you've ever suffered intrusive thoughts, then you know that they can become extreme. And so we just allow our thoughts to arise and accept whatever weirdness might be going through our mind. Thoughts are not facts, and our feelings are not facts. Just because we think or feel something doesn't mean we're going to act on it. And by being mindful, we can create the space between weird thoughts and what we choose to do with them. It's helpful when we return to our thoughts and emotions to cultivate a sense of curiosity rather than judging ourselves for having the thought or feeling in the first place. We might ask ourselves, what prompted that thought? What prompted that emotion? And we can begin to see some of our own triggers and work to reduce them for ourselves. You might get the idea that mindfulness is all about meditation, and while mindfulness can involve meditation, there are several mindfulness practices that don't involve sitting in meditation. We can engage in active listening with someone we care about, or we can practice mindful eating, or we can even engage in activities that we enjoy and that challenge us enough to put us into that flow state when we are really present in the current moment and we lose track of clock time. Even in the realm of psychology, there are psychological interventions that involve mindfulness. Of course, there's mindfulness-based cognitive behavioral therapy, and that does involve meditation. And there's mindfulness stress reduction. Again, another one that involves meditation. But dialectical behavior therapy and acceptance and commitment therapy do involve mindfulness techniques, but they don't require meditation. So if you are seeking out psychotherapeutic help and you want to engage with mindfulness, you might want to try those interventions. Because mindfulness is all about helping us to awaken, we don't want to become bored and sleepy in our practice. And so one of the things that we can do to keep ourselves fresh in our mindfulness practice is to choose different practices from among the many that are out there. So you may choose to focus on your breathing, and you may choose to sit in silence and to mindfully eat your noonday meal. But you may also decide to do a walking meditation in a labyrinth, or you may go home and listen to your partner with active listening techniques. Choose a variety of techniques to keep you interested and to keep you motivated in your practice. And my final tip is to make mindfulness a radical act of social change. There is criticism that mindfulness can cause us to become sheeple and become complacent against a rising tide of stress in an unsustainable capitalist culture, or against the suffering of others. But when we practice loving kindness meditation, when we practice active listening, and when we become aware of who we are and what our responses are in the moment, we can become responsible. We can become able to act on our values and our beliefs in the moment. And the equanimity that mindfulness brings helps us to be able to achieve that. I hope that you've enjoyed this month on mindfulness practice. If mindfulness doesn't really float your boat, then try to find another practice that will help you to be in the present moment and to become extremely self-aware. These two things will hold you in good stead as you live a life of gratitude. For what are you most grateful today?